In this lecture, we're going to build our environment that we're going to hack with Wireshark. This environment consists of one FTP server VM and one FTP client VM. These two clients are going to communicate, and we're going to use our Kali Linux VM to hack and intercept the communications. This also means that these two VMs will need to be on the same virtual network that our Kali Linux VM is attached to. So to get started, let's download the two VMs, import them into VirtualBox, and connect them to the network. So open your preferred web browser and navigate to itflea.com/hacking/resources. This is where all our resources will be stored for this course. itflea.com is the website that I run, so that explains why we're going to this particular website. So we're going to scroll down to the Hacking with Wireshark section. And we can see here we have an FTP server VirtualBox image that's 32-bit and an FTP client VirtualBox image that is also 32-bit. We need to download each of these files. Now they're about 4 gigabytes each, so you might want to download them one at a time. If you're prompted for the password is capital PASSW0RD ! Most of the time it just logs in automatically for you, so you won't need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and download these two files, and we're going to wait for this to finish. So what I recommend that you do is just go ahead and pause the video, and once the downloads are done, come back, resume the video, and we'll keep going from there. Okay, so I've downloaded the two files, so I'm going to close my web browser. And what I need to do now is extract the OVA files out of these WinZip files. So I'm just going to right click, drag it over, and hit extract here. We'll wait for this to finish. Alright, so we can see the OVA file has been extracted for the FTP server. Now I'm going to extract the FTP client. So now I have the FTP client and the FTP server OVA files extracted. So the next step is to import them into VirtualBox and configure them. So let's open VirtualBox. Before I do that, I'm going to actually copy this path. So I'm going to right click and copy, just make it easier for me to import it. I'm going to open VirtualBox and I'm going to click File, Import Appliance. You can also just hit Control-I. Now I'm going to browse to the directory where I saved the files. Just paste in that directory I copied a second ago. And I'm going to start with the FTP server. So we'll click FTP server and select Open. Click Next. And here we can see FTP server 32-bit. List the password in the description. It's Windows 7 32-bit. Now for the RAM, it's by default set to 2 gigabytes. Now you can lower this if your host computer has less than 4 gigabytes, because you're going to need to run these two VMs and the Kali Linux VM all at the same time. So I've seen some people get away with as low as about 512 megabytes. So if your host computer only has about 4, 5, 6 gigabytes of RAM, you might want to consider lowering this number. So you can also reinitialize the MAC address, and it's not a bad idea to check this. So we'll go ahead and check this checkbox. And basically, if you have another VM that has the same MAC address as this computer and it's on the same network, it can cause an issue. This likely isn't the case, but you can check the checkbox. Just to be safe that there won't be any conflicts with the MAC addresses. So I'll click Import. Now you can see here it's saying it's going to take about 20 minutes. Usually it starts out with a long estimated time and ends up only being a couple of minutes. So we'll just wait. Go ahead and pause the video and come back when you're done with the import. Okay, so now the VM has been imported, and we can see we have a new group here called Wireshark Hack. And we can see the FTP server has been imported into this group. Let's go ahead and right click on the FTP server and choose Settings. Go down to the Network tab and enable Adapter 1 and change the attached to the host only network that we created in an earlier lecture. I can see here that mine is number 3. Yours might be a different number. If you have more than one, make sure you choose the same host only network adapter that your Kali Linux VM is using. Click OK. If you're not sure which one your Kali Linux VM is using, right click on your Kali Linux VM, choose Settings, go down to Network, Adapter 2, and look for the host only Ethernet adapter number. And we can see it's number 3, just like what I assigned my FTP server. I'm going to click cancel. And now let's import the FTP client. So again, hit File, Import Appliance, and we're going to need to browse to the same directory where we downloaded the FTP client. So I'm going to choose Client and click Open. Click Next. I'm going to leave the memory at 2 gigabytes. I'm going to check the reinitialize the MAC address of all network cards checkbox, and I'm going to click Import. Now we just need to wait for this to import. Again, you can pause the video and wait for this to finish. Okay, so now the client has been imported and we can see it's in the same Wireshark hack group. So I'm just going to right click on this VM and I'm going to click Settings. Under Network, I'm going to choose Adapter 1, enable this network adapter. I'm going to select Host Only Adapter, and I'm going to make sure it's selected to the number 3 Host Only Ethernet adapter. So I'll click OK. And now we're ready to power on the VM. So I'm going to start with the server. I'm going to click Start. Okay, so the server's online. So the first thing I want to do is open Command Prompt by clicking the Windows button in the bottom left corner of the screen. I'm going to open Command Prompt by typing in cmd. And I'm going to type in ipconfig/renew. This command may not be necessary, but I'm just going to have you run it so that we keep things clear and open. So my computer was assigned 192.168.15.12. That's an important IP address that you'll need to remember. Next, let's go back to our VirtualBox Manager and let's start the FTP client. We're going to run the same command on the FTP client and we're going to make sure that the FTP client can ping the server. Now, take note that the server will not be able to ping the client because I did not open the firewall for ICMP on the FTP client. It's only opened on the FTP server. So you can only run the ping command from the FTP client to the FTP server, not the other way around. Okay, now that the FTP client is powered on, I'm going to hit the Start button again, and I'm going to open Command Prompt by typing in cmd, opening Command Prompt, and I'm going to type in ipconfig/renew. Okay, so it looks like this computer got the IP address of 192.168.15.11. Now, the other computer had gotten .12, I believe. So what we need to do is from this FTP client VM, see it says FTP client at the top here, I'm going to type in ping 192.168.15.12. And we can see we're getting a reply from the same FTP server that's on the same VirtualBox host only network. Now, the last thing we need to do is power on our Kali Linux VM and make sure that it can communicate with these computers as well. So I'm going to go back to my VirtualBox Manager, and I'm going to start my Kali VM. What we need to do is make sure that this VM does not have an IP address conflict with any of these other VMs that we've just brought online. So I'm going to maximize this. I'm going to open the terminal, and I'm going to type in ifconfig. And under Ethernet 1, we can see that it has an IP address of 192.168.15.10. This is not going to be conflicting with .11 or .12 like the FTP client and the FTP server has. So let's try and ping the FTP server. So 192, we're going to type in ping space 192.168.15.12. And this is the ping for the IP address of the FTP server. So I'm going to press enter. And we can see we're getting a communication between this computer and the FTP server. So that's all we need to do. I'm going to press left control and C to end the ping. And now what we need to do is verify we can connect to the FTP server from the FTP client. So on the FTP client, I'm going to close this command prompt and I'm going to open the FileZilla client by double clicking the icon that's on the desktop. Now I'm going to hit File, Site Manager, and change this IP address to .12. This is the IP address of the FTP server VM. I've already input the username and the password for you. The password is itflee, and I'm going to click Connect. And here we can see that it's connected and it's received a directory listing, and we can see in here we have a bunch of files in here like a hacker might want to get a hold of. So like credit card information, employee personal identifiable information, social security numbers, etc. Now, obviously, none of this information is real. It's just all generated. But just for the fun of it, I put this information in there so we'd have some fun when we're hacking this server. All right. Now, we verified that the FTP client can connect with the FTP server. And we downloaded and imported the VMs that we needed. And we verified that Kali Linux can communicate with all these VMs. So we're done setting up this project. In the next lecture, we're actually going to carry out the hack on these two Windows 7 VMs. And I will see you in the next lecture.